Hello and welcome to Playbill and the Growing Studios Broadway Q&A. Thank you for joining us. I'm Danny George. Now today I know you're expecting a Q&A with the brilliant director Scott Ellis, but our team at the Growing Studio, Playbill, and Scott did not want to pull focus from the most important movement of today, Black Lives Matter. Playbill and the Growing Studio champion Black actors and creatives, and we want to do our part to see, support, educate, and celebrate Black artists. Today, we welcome some of Broadway's leading Black actors to discuss. If you want to help educate, please share this video and help support. I'd like to welcome Director of Operations, Nicole Johnson, to lead today's discussion. Nicole, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Hey, how you doing, Danny?
Hi, how are you?
Good, good. Thanks for asking. Good to see you all. As Danny says, I am the Director of Operations at the Growing Studio and looking forward to this conversation. It's an important conversation. Danny, feel free to jump in if there's anything you want to continue to add. But as the nation continues to uncover the inequities that Black people face due to historical oppression, brutality, discrimination, bigotry, TGS is very interested in shifting culture and providing new opportunities for Black people, Black and brown people in the business. Danny, anything you wanted to add to that? We appreciate the opportunity, you know.
No, Nicole, we're in such good hands. Take it away. Thank you.
Good stuff. So navigating the entertainment industry as a person of color is a beast of its own. And so joining us today are outstanding leading ladies of Broadway. That is what they are. They are also Black leading ladies. Joining TGS students, staff, and faculty as we learn from these pros is the objective of today, and hopefully many other conversations that you can engage with us on in the future. So the Growing Studio is an Instagram. We have an Instagram that you can continue to engage with us on. And on Thursdays, we have these conversations at 11 a.m. And in addition, we'll be having them here on Playbill. And so we're thankful for Playbill and this partnership that we can continue to have conversations like this that help us to shift culture. I'm going to bring in our first guest, Ciara Renee Harper, better known as Ciara Renee. How are you doing, Ciara?
I'm good. How are you?
Good to see you. And so many of us know Ciara as the first Elsa in Frozen. And we want to start in that Broadway question and then take us a little further into your identity and you navigating the industry as a person of color, as a Black person. Would you first tell us, though, about your experience as Elsa on Broadway?
Yeah, I mean, getting to play the first full-time Black Elsa was incredible in so many ways. Obviously breaking down barriers and being able to represent for all the young women out there, young women of color out there who got to see themselves as an empowered woman, not as someone who is going through trauma necessarily. I mean, she comes out in the end as a strong woman, and I think that's something that we really, really need for young women of color to see that that's possible for them. Yeah. So yeah, it was. For me, it was a dream come true.
Good, good. And a dream come true, and we can get real comfortable and talk about this. The barriers that you had to navigate as a person of color leading up to that moment, I'm sure were plenty. And would you tell us a little bit about the rooms you entered, how you engaged in self-care? What were the things that were on your heart, things that maybe you couldn't have said? Anything that you feel that could stick with our readers to help us understand a little bit more about your identity?
Yeah, you know, it's been an interesting ride as a professional in this industry. When I first came into this world, moved to New York, I always got told, like, you're going to be so marketable because you're like another, but you're just like, you know, you're the I don't even know the word that they called it, but it was just ambiguous, ethnically ambiguous, right? So that was supposed to be like, you know, that's my ticket in, because I'm sort of like the digestible version of color at the time, you know, in 2013 when I was coming onto the scene. So that was like an interesting, like, I didn't know how to take that. Obviously, I was happy for opportunities, but it was also like, so the only reason I'm getting these opportunities is because I'm a person of color, but also like not quite a person of color. So it's always been a little bit of this navigating of the in-between, which has been my whole life. And in some ways I have privilege in that way. And in other ways it's very difficult. And so I try to use that when I'm offered these opportunities to step into rooms that I feel like people who, you know, are maybe darker skinned than me or have different body types or, you know, whatever, don't necessarily have the same privileges that I do. When I step into those rooms, I then feel like I am holding a little bit the responsibility of showing up, speaking out, calling people out, calling injustices out, which is it's not easy. I mean, my heart races often in rehearsals and in audition rooms when I'm having misogyny thrown at me, I'm having racism thrown at me, and people are uncomfortable and they don't know how to deal with, you know, their feelings of white guilt or their feelings of, you know, oh, I don't know how to deal with, you know, this woman's issue or, you know, whatever. I've dealt with all of that. I mean, I know for a fact that I have had jobs taken away from me because they were not ready to have a person of color in a non-traditional, you know, or in a traditionally white role. You know, I think about this moment now, and like, as much as it's horrible to be in a pandemic, I'm almost grateful that I'm not at work right now or having to go to work, because I can take the time that I need. I mean, I think about the times, like one moment that keeps coming back to me is, I think it was 2016, I was doing a show. I was in rehearsals. The majority of the people in rehearsal, as per usual, are white. And there's me and one other person of color. And I believe it might've been Terrence Crutcher or Keith Lamont Scott, who passed away because of police brutality. And I came in and I was enraged. I was depressed. I just wanted to cry. And you know what? I was like, you know what? I'll come in and I'll be a part of this community and I'll do my job and that'll make it better. But I came in and not one person brought it up. Not one person. We didn't take a moment. We didn't, nothing. Like they were talking about Brad and Angelina or something like that instead. And I was like, so did anybody see the news? Like, I brought it up. And the response was just like discomfort and like, yeah, let's just move on. And I just broke down.
Right.
And I hate that. You know, I want to show up and be a professional and do my job. And it's like, I have all of this, just like we have all of this now, just heaped on us. And it's over and over and over again, this cycle that I have to continually bring that in with me. I don't have a choice.
Right.
You know? You do what you can to take care of yourself, but we don't get the choice to like block it out and say, well, that's not a part of my world, like, you know, our white counterparts can.
Yes. And you said it at the beginning, you were like, you were conditioning the words that you said. You said, it's a little bit on my shoulders, right? But we know that it is gargantuan. And even having a conversation like this, I got to celebrate you, sis, for like the day that you, I'm sure, had plenty on your mind, that you can still be of service to communities so that we can continue to educate people about how they can best show up in the world for us and how we can shift culture. But it's a feat on its own for you to be here talking. And for every other person who will jump onto this call in the coming weeks. I think as we are trying to become solution oriented, we have to like kind of shift things in our head, because we're consistently experiencing several like daggers around the brutality, the bigotry, the historical oppression, how that shows up in inequity today. And then even the small microaggressions of walking into a room, right? So you're navigating those, and then you're trying to also help people and educate, as you are right now. That, I think, is just one of the many faces of Black excellence today. And so I'm applauding you for that, but then I also want to hear a little bit about what you feel Black Lives Matter means to you.
Yeah.
And take the time. You don't have to answer it quick.
Yeah. I mean, it's so huge, you know, and it's so baked into and embedded in our system. And I think that is the biggest thing that hopefully people are coming to grips with now, right? Because I think it was Will Smith that said, like, racism isn't getting worse, it's just getting filmed. And it's like, thank God that it's getting filmed, because at least when it's right there in front of you, you really can't say, oh, it doesn't, oh, you made it up. Or you, because I've had, how many times have I said to my white friends, hey, this thing happened. They're like, oh, but did it really? And you're like, okay, sure. I just make it up for funsies. But
yeah,
you know, it's, I just, you know, I totally understand this moment that we're in, the rage, the level of despair, the not knowing what to do with it, and just this need to be heard and to be seen and to be taken seriously. And it is so tragic that people of color and that Black people especially have had to have been so unheard and so unseen and so pushed to the margins, and so having to deal with this weight and this pressure and this fear and this anger and this pain, so much so that this is the only way it feels like we can be heard. And it's this, and the thing is, ultimately, like, this will only ever just be like a flash. And it's a big and powerful flash. And I think that's really important. And that energy that comes with this, and the light that comes with this to shine on all the things that are going on, is so important. And also, it's like, I want to look towards the future. I want to make sure that this moment is being used so that, like you said, we're confronting the inequities. We're looking at them. We know that they're real now. Right. And I mean, not that we haven't known that they're real, but like, hopefully we're making an inroad here with the passion that's going on, but also, what does it look like to be treated fairly? What does it look like to heal the wounds of the Black community? What does it look like to come together in community? You know, watching these videos of white people getting up in front of people who are on their knees and forming chains, and seeing police officers and, you know, officials of cities come and kneel with protesters. Right. That's the kind of stuff that we really need to be seeing and focusing on, because that's the point, right? That's what we're trying to do. We're not trying to say Black people are better than or more than or deserve more. That's not it. And it's never been it, you know? And to say that is so disingenuous, and is so, like, just, oh, it's so frustrating. Right. Like, no one should have to beg to be seen. No one should have to beg to be heard, so much so that the only way they feel they can do it is to burn shit down and to hurt and to, you know, to throw back out. I mean, it's just going to be a never ending cycle. We have to find a way to stop this. And I think that starts with this energy. And I hope it continues with what our demands are, how we want the world to be, what it should look like. And as artists, that is our freaking job. And that's the job that I want to do. And it's so often not available to people of color unless we're creating it ourselves, because we are not the ones pulling the strings, you know, but that is our job. It is our job to show the world what it could be. Right? To show the world what it is and what it could be, so we can fix the problem and get to the next place.
Right. That's that solution-oriented understanding. And then personalizing it. As an artist, I'm an education administrator in the art industry. You are a performer. We find our places where we can radiate light, right? And we can tell a story like you've told us. And we can ask people, if you listen to this story and you love me, and you can engage with me as your friend, and you're interested in being more supportive of me, as we're getting that question on and on this week from people, how can I be a better ally? Right. About digesting these stories and then empathizing in a way that moves you to action. Mm-hmm. And that action can be simple as, I obviously don't have enough ensemble members of color, or I have never placed a person of color or a Black person in this, in a role that they could potentially be in. Mm-hmm. Variety of options. We can be so creative and imaginative. Mm-hmm. How we can help, because we're so creative and imaginative in every other way.
Right.
And so with this, we hope that what you've heard, viewers, that Ciara Renee has just shared with us, is that there is this sense of being able to listen and digest a story and use your imagination to come up with new solutions that are personal to, like, who you are in the world. A producer, a performer, a supporter, a viewer, someone who can like something on Facebook, follow something on Twitter. We all have that agency and that power. So Ciara Renee, you're outstanding.
Thank you. You are too.
I support you and I celebrate you. And
I celebrate you. Thank you.
It's okay?
Yeah.
All right, then. I'm going to go ahead and bring in our next guest. Be strong, sis. So our next guest that I'd like to introduce joining us is the lovely Angela Birchett. Angela Birchett joined us on our Thursday Insta Live. We're so happy to have her. We're happy to have her back here. How you doing, Angela?
I'm hanging in there. I'm hanging in there.
Yeah. And that's a question that when I ask that question, honestly, I shouldn't have even asked it. But how you doing?
Listen, I appreciate you asking, and I get, but you understand.
I understand.
I know.
Yes. And let me get you an intro so people can know how wonderful you are. Okay. So Angela Birchett is an outstanding vocalist, concert vocalist, producer, artist that continues to strive in her craft personally, bringing that to audiences through a variety of platforms, but you also know her from The Color Purple. Angela, just tell us a little bit first about that experience as an essential member in that cast of The Color Purple.
Yeah, I joined the company about halfway through the run as one of their swings. I covered the church ladies, and then went on to be one of the church ladies on the tour. And it was my first Broadway show, so it was special for so many reasons. It's that show, to make your debut in that show, to learn how to be a swing on Broadway. I had been a swing before, but not to that degree, but also to be a part of a show that was so important, and the story, the angst, the pain, the recovery was so, you can taste it, you can feel it. And to be on that stage most nights that I was there was amazing. And to take that story on to the country and tour it for a year and see how it affected people, how it was a discovery for some people in certain regions who just don't see a stage full of people of color, telling us Black story about, something that's painful.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm nervous. I think the exterminator's coming to pray. Been waiting for 2 hours, and now he wants to come. But it was a phenomenal experience, and I've been really blessed to be able to tell stories about my people, and our pain, our victories, our pride. I don't even think we talked about it before, but I just did the biopic of the Clark sisters, which is another film about Black women being extraordinary, overcoming the odds. And these women are legendary. So to be able to tell their story while they're still living, to see that was amazing. And it just fills me with pride because I get to do work that's for us, about us, by us. So it's really cool.
Yes. And for those of you watching, just want to make sure you know that this is going to be posted on YouTube and Facebook after, allowing you to share these stories that we're going to be engaging in. And I think sticking on that storytelling idea, it's such an iconic story of growth and struggle and pain that you have shared with us in that professional sense. And then it's also about the storytelling that we have to engage in when we are helping others understand the plight of Black people, right? And that storytelling can be exhausting.
The answering of the questions can be exhausting, but go ahead. I'm sure we'll get there.
I was just going to say, no, I wanted you, even though I'm asking you to tell another story about your identity, navigating the industry as a person of color, as a Black woman. Just tell us a little bit about your identity and things that you felt that you had to navigate, some poignant moments.
Yeah. Well, this is a discussion that I have been having for a while with friends of mine of all shades and sizes, and backgrounds, and what our strengths are, and what we came up doing. And I know I've one of the challenges that I've had. I don't know that it's been a restricting one, but it's been a challenge nonetheless, because I am fair skinned. I sometimes do run into issues where I'm considered ambiguous racially. So, a lot of times I'll get, particularly with, for example, the show Dreamgirls, I've gotten all the time, we loved her, and it was really tough for us not to hire her, but she just didn't fit the scheme of the layout of the ladies. And I knew what that meant. I mean, and I've even had it told to me literally, like she just was too fair. She
Mhm.
just it didn't work. Like it worked in every other way but that. And I understand for the person on the other side of the table, there's no other way to say it. If you're gonna just go ahead and be honest, that's what it is. But that's a sting because it's just another moment of we only can be seen a certain way. If you don't fit this certain look or whatever, you know, because we're trying to make sure it's clear to an audience that doesn't look like me. Because if you put that show in a room full of Black people, no one's questioning the fact that I'm fair skinned.
Mhm.
When I open my mouth, the way I move, the way I sing, the way I talk, is clear.
Right.
But this is an example of how, in an indirect way, we have to placate to people who are not our color or who don't understand our culture, because that's the way it's been. There's all of these little boxes that we get put into because of how we look or how we sound or how we don't sound. Just had a conversation yesterday about a young lady who was an amazing actress, but she was expected to come in and sing Black, and she didn't sound Black enough.
Mhm.
And she was amazing in every other way, but that stopped her. And
Right.
it's just, those are just two of just probably hundreds of stories and incidents where we feel like, what else are we supposed to do? I can't fix my shade. I can't fix, it's nothing to fix. You
Mhm.
know, this is who we are. We're not a monolith. We keep hearing that lately, but it's so true. Black people are not a monolith. We aren't all like belty singers or play basketball or, want to, put them on stage, put our men on stage with no shirts on. And, we're so layered and so diverse. And I think because of just the history of our country, and the positioning of where everybody falls in the big scheme of things, it's a uphill climb to find a way to educate, to for people to make room for things that they don't quite understand or can't relate to, and just kind of let us do it. Let us do it. Let us show you.
Mhm.
And I think part of the frustration we are having currently is that we're kind of tired of saying that. We're tired of, like Ciara said, we're tired of having to be the person to bring it up
Mhm.
because everybody else just kind of blew it off because they can't relate, or it's not an issue to them. It doesn't directly affect them or their money or their, their livelihood. But
Right.
it affects us from the minute we walk out our door to the minute we come back.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes. The details that you're speaking to right there. You're speaking.
and I know it's real honest. I hope it's
I know
at
you
this
can be
point
honest.
I have to just say it. I can't.
Yes.
I can't sugarcoat it because I think that's been part of the problem. We've kind of tiptoed around it, and we,
Right.
if we're just putting it out there, people are afraid to say how they really feel because they don't want to have that mark put down. Oh, that's one to watch. They're a problem. They're gonna one of the ones is gonna give us an issue, and we're not trying to cause an issue. We're just trying to walk fair, equitably through the world, just like you do. So
Yep.
don't mistake my passion for anger. Don't mistake my my detail and my specificity for being a nitpicker or trying to find a problem. This is something we always have to do as a culture,
Yeah.
and nobody else has to do that. You don't have to check your whiteness when you walk out the door. I
Right.
have to check my, even as a fair Black woman who people think I'm Hispanic or they think I'm biracial. And I make a joke all the time. I'm standard issue Black. Both my parents are Black. We just come in different colors. Okay. And it's exhausting. It's exhausting. And I know I have friends who've been reaching out, allies that are like, what can I do? I want to petition this and I want to boycott that. But, part of me honestly is like, I'm kind of tired. Like, what is that going to do? It's not at this point, talk to each other.
Yeah.
Now if you need my help or you have a genuine question, I'm down. But the real conversation has to happen. The uncomfortable conversation has to happen with your colleague or your family member or your neighbor or your grandmother who just doesn't understand why it's about race. You have to be the one to upset the situation. Like, you have to act up.
Yeah.
And say we can't play it cool. We can't sugarcoat this anymore
Right.
because people are dying. People are getting run over by cop cars. People are getting stabbed and shot because they're outside saying, please stop killing us.
Right.
We're human beings. Stop treating us like dogs.
And there's what you said there's a honesty that has to happen, right? When you see a picture, and this is for those who are interested in just learning more and how to like the solution, right? When you see a picture or you hear an instance or you hear a story that made you kind of like turn your face or it hurt your heart in some way, many of the stories that we've already heard in just these first 15, 25 minutes, right? When you hear that story, it's about then being able to look at an instance in which you are someone who can shift the culture as an ally. And you can say, you know what, in my space right here in the midst of all of my white colleagues, I can bring this up and I can be honest. Because if we're not being honest, we're failing each other.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, we know that the honest truth is that inequities persist. And we all know them, because that's the very interesting, funny thing about this, is that everyone knows and has known for several years.
This isn't new. This is not.
Now we got to shift us, right?
Right.
So what are your thoughts when it comes to what to help people shift us as in like every color person? How do we shift who we are in the space so that this stuff that is in our minds, our ideals for how the community should be, how the world should be, that they become a reality? Those ideals. How do they? Yeah. What is? I was going to ask you the Black. Oh, let me let you go. Angela. Go.
Yeah.
Go
one of the things that I think is a simple fix that I don't know. You know, I'm not in those rooms where they happen, but I'm outside the door, and I think one of the very simple things in our Broadway community that can happen is, for example, if you want to do a musical, The Prince of Egypt, because we know there was a big mess around that years ago about the casting for it and all the things. When producers sit down and say, hey, we want to do this story, and this is whatever story that is not a classic musical theater all white cast story, we know that we're gonna be exploring other cultures that we're not as familiar with. Start at ground zero with, we need a team of people that don't look like us, that can advise us, that can be in the room casting to say, hey, wait. I get what you're saying and I get the rationale, but it's incorrect. Let me show you what this actually means. Let me show you the history or why this person wouldn't look like that.
Right.
Have people of color, Middle Eastern, Black, African descent, West Indian descent. If you're going to be doing shows about these cultures and these times in history, have a team or have people on your team that you actually listen to, and you take their advice and you take their recommendations and you actually apply them, so that you have someone there, so that when all these decisions are made and now you go live with it and you get this uproar, this is why, because you didn't ask the question. So here we go. Start putting more people of color on your creative teams when you want to, and any project, but particularly those that are going to be a predominantly Black or people of color cast, or a very specific point in history, like The Color Purple. We're talking about sharecropping era. We're talking post-slavery. We're into the new century. We need to have people there that can advise, that can historically correct, that and it's not done in a trying to tell you you're wrong. It's just let people who actually know this history and lived it and are products of it be a part of the telling of it, so that you don't get a situation where you roll out this grand idea and you get people going nuts because they're like, what is this? We don't get that many opportunities as it is to tell our stories. It's not a priority on Broadway. It just isn't. But the times that you're going to do it, make sure you have a diverse team of people that can bring honesty and bring accuracy to these stories. Be just as open to tell another idea is be just as open to telling obscure stories about European and other non-American but white cultures. Present stories about the Zulu nations, the rich cultural history of Africa. There are so many stories about people that other than Americans or Europeans that are beautiful, visually spectacular, musically phenomenal. Be about, if you want to make a statement, Broadway, put a story on stage that most of America doesn't know anything about, and put your money and put your power behind that. And you'll start to see, because then Black people will trust you and say, okay, you really are about this. That's what we need. We don't need a bunch of more posts and, you know, asking us questions, because the questions have been asked. We're giving you answers. Are you listening? Are you mobilizing your action and follow through? Is that happening? That's what we need, especially right now where we're all getting a big reset. Broadway is resetting. So why not take the opportunity to really reset? Put some new stories, some fresh stories, some brown and chocolate and dark skinned faces on stage from the Middle East and Africa and America, the South of America, and put us on stage and tell those stories. They need to be heard, because the I can't relate, the I don't know about that is part of our global problem.
Yeah, that power.
Exposing.
Yep. And the concept, like as we're wrapping up, like the power concept that you're speaking to, just helps me to remember, not even remember because I know this, but helps me to re-articulate that representation matters for the stories that will come from a diverse room in any industry, entertainment industry, education, health, you know, any type of labor industry that has a diverse room of people will be able to make decisions that are better for the world, for the nation, for that particular community that is probably diverse.
Right.
And so I'm loving all these solutions that you brought to the table. I'm also loving that I can just continue to see you, support you, and celebrate you, because I'm just so thankful, Angela. I'm happy to know you, and I'm excited that you've been able to share this. Everyone know that you can please share this video after.
Yes.
You continue to spark the beginning of the things that need to happen in your personal identity, in your own community. You got to take this information and find a way to ingrain it into your daily actions so that we can all collectively shift culture. So thank you, Angela Birchett. You are outstanding.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you for having me.
Of course. All right. See you later.
See ya.
So our next and last guest for right now is Shereen Pimentel. You'll know Shereen from West Side Story, the Broadway revival. We'll bring Shereen in just a minute as we're waiting. Hey, there she is. I was just going to say, hello, darling. Good to see you. I was just going to say that we've been able to hear some stories from two outstanding Black females in the Broadway community. Shereen, in her age and in her essentially stepping into the industry, I feel is going to give us a different perspective because you've been in this industry as a young person for a while and are in a point in your career that is absolutely fascinating and exciting to say as a Black female. You're really paving the way for us, sis. And I want to hear a little bit more about your experience as Maria in West Side Story. There you are. Can you hear me?
I'm back. I can hear you. Yeah.
Good. All good. I was just prepping people to help them know a little bit more about your career, but we want to know about your experience as Maria in the Broadway revival.
Yeah. My experience, I think, in the industry has been a positive one. And I think that the reason of that is because I started in the industry as playing young Nala in The Lion King. And The Lion King is something that is, it's like a unicorn of anything. It is a show that is like predominantly people of color. So as a 9-year-old, like walking into musical theater, I was like, oh, phenomenal. Like when I first saw it, I thought, oh, I can totally do this because look at all the people that are there that look like me. There's a young girl that looks like me. Like I can do this. There's absolutely no reason why I can't. My views changed obviously as I grew up and saw kind of what the rest of the world was like outside of that bubble, but that was my first introduction. And so to me, it was like, oh, this is totally attainable. It's something that it doesn't matter what you look like. You can totally do this. And that did change because life, and also just, you know, having parents, and talking and going through it. That idea did change of I had to be at the top of anything. Like there was never any room to be second best in anything,
Right.
because at the end of the day, I was already behind the 8 ball for being Black. That was always a thing, was that the color of your skin is going to already set you back. So you have to be as like the top that you can possibly be, so that you can try to reach the exact same goals that other people were reaching. And now playing West Side Story was a huge deal for me, because being a Black Hispanic person, and never having seen that in the portrayal of Maria was so important, because I remember seeing Maria and not thinking that I fit in that, even though that is who I am. That I never felt like I could like play that role, because she didn't look the same way, and I love being able to play it every night. I don't know, to do it for other people, for them to see that like they don't have to look the way that it may have been portrayed before. Like it didn't matter. And I don't know, I think that that's just so important, of like the look of things and inclusion. It's so important, because it's so easy, I think, as adults, but also as a kid, to see something and be like, I can't do that because they don't look like me, and therefore I don't fit there. And that happened to me so many times, going through it. So yeah, that's been my experience through like industry.
For sure. And then I wanted to speak a little bit more into your navigating the industry, but I want to like hit a point that you just mentioned around how much work it requires for the, as many people have been looking at videos and articles about inequity, and how that then requires Black people to navigate their circumstances at this extreme rate of effort all day, every day. Telling the story of that and giving us some detail, I think, will help others to empathize. So could you tell us a little bit more, because you've been doing it since you were young, because I know you're a hard worker, and you have been a hard worker. You were probably told at 4, you must work much harder. People know this, but I don't think we've been able to give it enough color for people to understand but honestly, they've been seeing our good face that we put on, our real strong face. I want to talk about the face behind it a little bit, giving them a little bit of color. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think it's actually one of the hardest things to grapple with as you get older, of like the one thing that's ingrained is that like you have to be better than everybody you see.
Right.
Everybody. Because
I love it. Go.
Yeah. Oh wait. Yeah. Yeah, I like it's really a crazy concept when you're a kid. You're like, how does one do that? And the way my parents were able, and I thank my lucky stars every single day, that my parents were, first of all, incredibly supportive about what I do, but had the means to be able to provide it for me, so that I could be at the top of that game, so that I could be in the best classes and try to meet the best teachers, because that is a huge part. It's a thing that I have had many discussions with my family about, of you could be as talented as you are, but there is also a part of being able to have access to stuff. And I know that I had so much access to things that other people do not have. So my family just, if there was a door that they could try to like wedge open for me to walk through, they would. If they needed to do something, they did it. And that I really appreciate and also recognize is a big thing. But on top of that, I was in every single class I could be in, and I was practicing hours and hours and hours on end. And my mom would always say, there's no way you could do this unless you are the best at it. I never in my life did anything unless I was like top 2 at least, but I had to try to be number 1.
Right.
And but it always came back to the fact that you could do twice the amount of work of somebody else, and you will only get half of what they got, just because of the way you were born. And that is something that you cannot fix.
Right.
But the only thing you could try to help is how good you are. That was the only thing that you had agency over. You had the ability to do something about that.
Mhm.
And so you were going to do as much as you possibly could.
Right.
Yeah. And it is hard. It really is. Because you don't understand why. Like, I appreciate it now as an adult. You know, I'm on Broadway. It's great. I love it. I love my job.
Mhm.
But as a kid, you don't understand why, because why can't I don't want to be mediocre. I'm not saying, like, you know, not be less than, but why did I have to fight so hard
Right. Right.
for my spot? Like, harder than other people had to fight. Why?
Right. I mean,
You know, and yeah.
all I was going to say is it's historical. It's just a
Yeah.
part of the fabric of the nation that we have to work harder, and that we built a nation, and done it in such a way that we have created this sense of self that is attached to that working hard. So sometimes I imagine that if you're not working hard, you're like, I'm not doing something right. Like, you could be working fine. You're probably like making it happen. You're probably doing really well, but you're still possibly disappointed in yourself as a Black, because that happens to me. I'm like, why are you working so hard? What are you doing all of this work for, right? It's just a part of our experience. And if people know that about our experience, maybe they can find it in themselves to recognize in a conversation with a Black person that I'm sure that this person is probably navigating several things that I'm not. And how can I help them? But we're so good at disguising it as well. So I'd like you to, as we ask this last question about what you feel Black Lives Matters, what do you think that means to you? I also want you to tell us a little bit about that tinge of like the resilience that I think that we have in us, and how that is a part of the conversation. Like, we are actively also putting up some real strong fronts because we've always had to. And that can get tiring and exhausting, but I think it also makes it hard for allies to understand what we need because we're so strong.
Absolutely.
That's difficult. It's complex, but give us some response to that if you can.
Yeah. So I think starting with like Black Lives Matter movement, that means I sat here and thought actually before we got on about like why one would say like all lives matter to Black Lives Matter. And I sat there and I said, well, at the end of the day, somebody would say all lives matter because, you know, my life matters too. Sure. Yes. Your life does not matter. It's important. Your life is important too. But if someone is saying that my life is less than your life, that's a problem.
Right.
Right. So at the end of the day, we're saying Black Lives Matter so it's equal. We're not saying Black Lives Matter so we're above you. No, we're trying to come from this feeling of a behind and trying to be like, no. We are saying it's equal, but in a way of saying Black Lives Matter because I'm not less than someone else. And I think that is the thing. Is like Black Lives Matter means to me like less than, and trying to fight for that like equal. And that's a conversation we had about, like I said, the not great white way meant, you know, fighting for your place at the table. And I think that that's so important. And I think it's something that Black people and brown people work for every day, is that place at the table. But the biggest part of this conversation that I have wanted to like scream at the rooftops, that I think that we've wanted forever, is having other people who are not Black and brown wanting to step up and do something.
Mm-hmm.
Like, step up, do something for all of us who are fighting for our place at the table, because we are going to keep trying to change the system. But if someone already has a prejudice against me, they're not exactly going to listen to me. They're not going to look at me. They're not going to hear the words I'm saying. Right. It doesn't matter how like nicely packaged I put it and how easily digestible I get it. Right. They're not going to hear me, because just right off the bat, from the way I look, they're not feeling it. And so I really loved to see and want to see more of this idea of other people trying to push this equality, this equal idea
Yeah.
That's what Black Lives Matter means, is equality at the end of the day.
Yeah, I hear
So
you.
yeah, that's that. And then the idea of that pretty little package is, I think, our resilience and a lot of the veneer and the things that we have to put on ourselves to be able to get through every single day being
Right.
a Black and brown person.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard and it's tiring.
Mm-hmm.
I've gone through the past few days and been like, I'm tired. Have I protested? No. Do I stand with the people who have? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But every single person who is affected by this, I think specifically Black and brown people I'm talking about, they have to go through it themselves. However they feel, sadness, anger, whatever, ride that wave and feel every single emotion, and all of them are valid. I think that is so important for everyone to know. But I think that this movement, and especially the time at home, has helped for, like, especially me. I am a culprit. I've got my armor and my pretty smile and my nice package and my, my easily digestible, like, sentences. I've got the whole thing, and I think many of us do. But I think that this time at home and this time reflecting and being alone has been able to kind of chip it that in a way that I think is really good.
Yes. Yeah.
I think it's great.
Mm-hmm.
I just love that strength of, like, being able to open it up and get to a place of, like, I'm Black and I'm really happy to be Black, and I'm gonna celebrate that and my own strength in that, and find myself within that.
Yeah.
And push forward. But also, I don't have to explain to other people. I have seen so many great resources and a lot of people just bringing up things of places you can look. I need you to click those links and you need to read through them.
Yeah.
Because I think it's so hard to ask your friends.
Yeah.
And it's hard on your friends. I don't think that it's, I think that they're there for you, but that's really hard. I think that we should allow people to kind of, like, let go of their armors and their feelings that are in front of it and just, like, let go, whatever it is.
Yeah.
That's my biggest thing about that.
Yeah, Shereen.
Because it's hard. It's so hard.
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sis, you got it though. Listen, if you can tell a story like that, it is the part of the resilience that I'm talking about. We can put up that face because we're still all going to go to work, get on our computers, do what we have to do, right? Still go out and encourage other Black and brown people. We're still going to do that stuff. That is the resilience of us. And it's the resilience of the people that come before us. I think this is just our time to exercise it now, which is a fantastic thing that we get a chance this generation. And that's why at the beginning, I've known you as a young person for a long time. And I'm just so happy that right now, this is our time. Like, we get a chance to be those people that our ancestors were, that navigated the civil rights movement. And so I think for the viewers that are watching around Shereen's learning points that we've heard from her, it's a question of, like, as a young person, you have probably a lot more energy than some people who are a little bit older than us, right? This is our time to navigate these conversations, come up with creative solutions, do the reading that Shereen is suggesting, and be creative, like we talked about with Ciara Renee and with Angela. Be creative in changing your spaces. Be creative in advocating for other people. Be creative in telling the story to a friend that you realize isn't getting it. We can be creative in so many other ways, except for when we're fighting inequity, right? Like, everyone's wants to make some arts and crafts and design some stuff together, right?
Yeah.
But now, why don't we start designing things around how to address the inequities that are facing our Black and brown people?
Absolutely. And I think the thing of, like, we can dress up, we can go to work, we can get ready, is because I don't hate my job. I absolutely love what I do. And I think every single Black and brown person loves what they do. But that does not mean that they don't want to fight for difference and they don't want to fight for change, right? People, we love being alive, so we still fight for the world to change.
Yeah.
And I think that is just, like, you just push that in every aspect of your life. So you figure out how to be able to get through it, and then you come home, you let that go, and you try to figure out a way to make movements forward, not just for yourself, but for everybody, for the future. Because as I get older, right, I'm of the younger generation, but I know that, you know, it's going to keep happening. Age is going to keep climbing. And as I get older, I want to be able to look back and say that I did something, that something changed. Right. Something moved forward. There was a difference. And I think that something that was beautiful that was said before by Angela was like, we are resetting. Let's reset. And like, when we start again, let's see more Black and brown faces. Like, let's see that happen. Let's see that movement make a difference, a change, action.
Right.
That's a thing. It's like making this a verb, not a noun, not like a thing that like is elusive and exists, but make it concrete. And that, I think, is so important to do right now.
Yeah. Let's hold them accountable. Let's hold ourselves accountable, sis. So as we're wrapping up, Shereen, you are outstanding. I see you, I support you, and I celebrate you, as I always have. And I'm very thankful for everything that you shared with us today. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up, but thanks, hon, okay?
Yeah, bye.
Bye. So, friends, thank you so much for being with us on this day, this very, very complex day that we're all experiencing several different types of emotions. But here I felt joy and I felt hope for our future. We're going to have another one of these wonderful conversations on Wednesday with new guests. So please tune back in. This is Nicole Johnson, Director of Operations at The Growing Studio, signing out. Check us out on Instagram at The Growing Studio. Okay? Peace, friends.